You ever walk into your own house and realize it was never yours to begin with? At least, not in their eyes. That was me. Michael, 29, the family fixer, the go-to guy, the always available emotional spare tire. And it wasn't because I couldn't say no. It's because I thought no wasn't an option. I've been the dependable son, the invisible one. My sister, Madeline, she was the wildfire. Untamed, reckless, magnetic in a way that made people bend their realities to make space for her mess. She was adored for simply surviving her own chaos. I was praised for quietly enduring hers. Growing up, when Madeline brought home D's and drama, my parents cleared their calendars to hold her together. When I brought home straight A's, I got a nod and maybe a good job, buddy, if I was lucky. And when she dropped out of college to figure herself out for the 5th time, they paid her rent and bought her groceries. I worked double shifts to pay for my own tuition, but I kept showing up. Holidays, Sunday dinners, the occasional emergency text asking if I could Venmo a few $100 just until Friday. Victor, her husband, never held a job for more than a few months. Crypto this, dropshipping that. Every disaster was a learning experience, and somehow my bank account kept getting called in as the tuition. I told myself I didn't mind. Family is family, right? Until that dinner. It was October. The lasagna smelled too good for a regular Thursday. That should have been the first red flag. I walked in, tired from work, suit jacket wrinkled from the train ride, and saw both Madeline and Victor already lounging in the living room. Their leased luxury SUV parked in the driveway like a trophy. Dinner started normal enough. Madeline talked over everyone. Victor bragged about some real estate seminar he watched on YouTube, and my mom beamed like it was gospel. I nodded through it all until my mother dropped the bomb like it was nothing. "They'll be moving into your house next month," she said. Just like that. Like it was settled. Like I was the one being evicted. I blinked. My house, my mortgage, my sweat, my weekends spent painting walls and patching plumbing. Apparently, it was now a family timeshare I didn't sign up for. "You can take the smaller bedroom or move back in with us temporarily," she added with a smile that made my skin crawl. I looked around the table. No one flinched. Not my dad. Not Madeline. Not even Victor, who was already planning nursery furniture in the guest room. The one with my bay window. That was the moment. The crack inside me finally split open. It wasn't a scream. It wasn't a slammed fist. It was a sip of wine, a smile, and a soft, "Sure, I'll start packing this weekend." And just like that, I made up my mind. If they wanted my house so badly, they could have it, but not the way they thought. The strange thing about betrayal is how it wears a familiar face. You don't see it coming, not because it hides well, but because you've been taught not to look. That night after dinner, I didn't scream or cry. I didn't argue or beg. I drove home, my home, and sat in the driveway for a long while, staring at the lights glowing softly behind the curtains I chose. I thought about everything I had done to build this life. The unpaid internships, the ramen noodle years, the silence I endured every time my accomplishments were shrugged off in favor of Madeline's latest meltdown. All of it. And now, they wanted to gift wrap it to her like a consolation prize for poor life planning. No, I wasn't going to fight them. I was going to disappear. The next morning, I called my boss. "Is that Chicago offer still on the table?" He paused, surprised. "You're interested now?" "I'm ready," I said. "I can be there in 3 weeks." I wasn't bluffing. The move came with a pay bump, a better office, and more responsibility. But more importantly, it came with distance. It came with peace. Then I called a realtor, not one from our town, where gossip spreads faster than wildfire, but someone from a neighboring area. A professional, sharp woman named Erica, who promised a discreet and quick sale. I told her I needed it done in 3 weeks. She smiled and said, "Challenge accepted." And just like that, I had a timeline. To my family, I became the perfect little soldier. I cleared out closets, boxed up furniture, and told my parents I was just decluttering to make space for the baby. I asked Madeline what color she wanted for the nursery. I even let Victor come by to measure the living room for his sectional. They walked through my home like they owned it. She laughed about tearing out the vegetable garden because it's not really our style. He rolled his eyes at the art on my walls and said he'd finally make the place look modern. Each insult was another reason to smile inside, because while they picked paint swatches, I was closing deals. While they browsed nursery sets, I was transferring funds to a new bank. While they daydreamed about their new life, I was packing for mine. I signed the lease for an apartment in Chicago, a high-rise with a view of the lake. I rerouted my mail, sold off furniture, and kept just enough in my old accounts to maintain the illusion. I moved my belongings into a storage unit under a different name. I even told my mother, sweetly, I'm going to take a short business trip before the move. Just a few days. I want to be rested before Madeline and Victor settle in. She touched my cheek and said, That's our Michael, always thinking of others. I almost laughed. They didn't see it. Not once. Not the fire building behind my quiet nods. Not the boundary I was silently drawing in steel. There's a silence that happens right before a plan clicks into place. It's not loud like revenge. It's cold, quiet, surgical. The listing went live on a Friday. By Monday, I had 3 offers. By Wednesday, I accepted an all-cash buyer from out of state, eager to close within 21 days. Just like that, my house was no longer mine. Just like that, their future playground turned into someone else's property. 3 weeks. 3 weeks of smiling through clenched teeth while Madeline brought over nursery inspiration boards, and Victor tried to sell me on converting my guest bath into a rainforest-themed spa. I feigned interest, asked questions, handed them measuring tape while silently planning my last walk through each room. It was almost poetic, handing them the keys to a kingdom they never cared to build, only to have the ground pulled from beneath them. The Saturday before closing, I told my parents I had a business trip in the city. Won't be back until the day before move-in, I said with an apologetic shrug. My mom squeezed my arm and said she was proud of me. You're always thinking of others, Michael. The first smiled. That's me. I loaded the last of my boxes into a rented U-Haul and drove north, the skyline of Chicago greeting me like an open door to a life I'd been too loyal to pursue. My new apartment smelled like new paint and lemon cleaner. The view overlooked Lake Michigan, wide, endless, and full of possibility. That evening, I stood on my balcony with a glass of scotch, the city buzzing beneath me, and waited for the storm. It didn't take long. Sunday morning was supposed to be Madeline and Victor's big move. They had coordinated help. My dad rented a truck. My mom prepped sandwiches. It was a full-on family effort, because helping Madeline succeed was a collective sport. Always had been. My phone vibrated on the kitchen counter, a number of calls. First from my mom, then Madeline, then Victor, then again. I let them go to voicemail. I could imagine the scene. Victor pulling into the driveway, music blasting. Madeline bossing people around while sipping a $6 coffee. My parents, ready to hand over control of a house they never had the right to offer. Except now, a real estate agent was standing at the door, handing keys to a nice couple from Ohio who'd bought the place fair and square. I pictured my mother's face when she realized the garden Madeline planned to rip out was no longer hers to touch. I imagined Victor swearing under his breath while the moving truck idled curbside. I thought of Madeline, her face red, voice rising, demanding to speak to someone, anyone. As the reality sunk in, this was never a plan. It was a setup. The calls came faster. My mother left the first voicemail. Confusion. Michael, honey, the new owners just arrived. Is there some kind of mistake? Then anger. You better explain this right now. This is your family, Michael. Then desperation. Where are they supposed to go? They're having a baby, for God's sake. Eventually, I texted back. The same place I was supposed to go, I guess. Figure it out. Then I blocked them. Not just my parents, everyone. Cousins, aunts, even my uncle, who once joked about how nice it must be having me as a backup ATM. One by one, they vanished from my phone, like weights slipping off my shoulders. I didn't do it out of spite. I did it for oxygen. 2 weeks into my new life, Ryan, a colleague from the firm, someone I trusted enough to keep in the loop, texted me, "Your sister and Victor are crashing at your parents'. Your mom's telling people you had some kind of breakdown." Wild. I didn't respond. A month later, apparently, Victor lost a lot of money in that crypto scam. Your parents invested too. Retirement funds gone. That one stung. Not because I cared about their money, but because they had the audacity to gamble their future, then act like mine was theirs to fall back on. It didn't end there. Victor had opened credit cards in my parents' names. Payday loans. By the third month, it was chaos. The baby hadn't even arrived, and already the house was full of debt collectors, stress, and tension. I felt a flicker of sympathy, not for them, but for the child. I sent an anonymous gift card for a baby supply store to Victor's mother's address. No name, no return, just the bare minimum of kindness for a life dragged into someone else's storm. I didn't owe them more than that. 6 months passed. My new team respected me. I was building something that was mine. People knew me here, not as the backup plan or the invisible son, but as the sharp guy who always delivered, who kept his promises. One day, I got a letter, forwarded from my old P.O. box, from my grandmother. She wrote with shaky handwriting, "Michael, the first heard what happened. Your mother tells one story, but I know better. I always knew you were the strong one. I've made changes to my will. I don't have much, but you deserve something of your own. I'm proud of you for standing up for yourself. Love, Grandma." I sat on my couch, letter in hand, and cried for the first time in months. Not from guilt, not from regret, but because someone finally saw me. Life in Chicago moved differently. Faster, yes, but somehow calmer too. People minded their business. No one expected me to solve their messes or play emotional therapist over meatloaf. I could finally breathe. 6 months had passed since I vanished from the life that used to drain me dry. Ryan occasionally fed me updates I never asked for. It became our silent ritual. Once a month, a message from him, equal parts gossip and warning. One day he texted, "Madeline had the baby. A girl. They named her Michelle." No, I'm not kidding. Michelle, my name. The feminine version, anyway. I stared at the screen for a long time. At first, I thought it was a joke. But the longer I looked at the message, the more it sank in. This wasn't an olive branch. It was Madeline's way of rewriting history, of framing herself as connected to me, even as she tried to erase the reality of what they'd done. Still, I couldn't hate a child for being born into a whirlwind. So I did one last thing. I bought a savings bond and mailed it, anonymously, to Victor's mother's address. No card, just a sticky note that said, "For college, no strings attached." And that was that. Clean break. Until the call came. It was a Tuesday evening in early spring. I'd just come back from a long day at the office, kicked off my shoes, and poured a glass of wine when my phone rang with a number I didn't recognize. I never should have answered. "Michael?" The voice was smaller than I remembered. Frayed. It was my mother. I didn't speak. I just let the silence hang. "Please don't hang up," she said quickly, like a prayer. We need help." Those 4 words. We need help. Like a familiar song I'd heard too many times before. She explained it all in a breathless rush. My father had a mild heart attack last month. Medical bills were piling up. Victor was out of work, again, and Madeline hadn't left the house in weeks. They were still living with my parents. The baby was colicky. The stress was unbearable. They were about to lose their home. The urge to help flickered inside me like an old light switch, half functional, rusty, but still wired to something deeper. I could have asked for numbers. I could have made a spreadsheet, transferred funds, arranged something anonymous and discreet, but I didn't. Instead, I said, "I'm sorry to hear that. I hope Dad recovers quickly." She paused. That's it? What do you want me to say, Mom?" I asked, voice flat. "That I'll fix it again? That I'll give up my life to patch the holes everyone else keeps punching in theirs?" "You're their uncle," she whispered. "Your family." "No," I said. "I was never family. I was the backup plan. The one you knew would survive while you threw lifelines to everyone else." She inhaled sharply. "Who told you that? Does it matter?" I said. "It's always been true. You didn't even ask me before giving away my home. You expected me to just move aside. Like always. Silence. Long. Heavy. I have to go," I added. "Take care of Dad." And I hung up, blocked the number. Again. The next day, my manager called me into his office. He was offering me a new opportunity, a promotion, this time across the pond. London office, bigger accounts, a fresh start. I said yes before he even finished the sentence. That night, I stood on my balcony, wind brushing my face, the lake below shimmering like a memory I hadn't quite let go of. I raised my glass to the skyline and whispered to no one, to distance, to boundaries, to freedom earned the hard way. The plane touched down at Heathrow under a sky the color of steel wool. London greeted me not with sunshine, but with space, not physical, but emotional. It gave me a life that wasn't tethered to guilt, obligation, or the weight of being the reliable one. And for the first time, that space felt like home. My flat in Shoreditch was compact but warm. Brick walls, oversized windows, a quiet corner desk that overlooked a tiny cafe below. I furnished it with intention. No hand-me-downs, no leftover couches from family basements. Everything I brought in was chosen. Nothing carried history I didn't write. I made friends slowly, then all at once. At work, my team respected me, not because they knew my story, but because I delivered. I led global accounts, flew to Paris on a Tuesday, Zurich by Thursday. On weekends, I wandered markets and bookshops, learning to enjoy my own company in a way I never had back home. No one here knew Madeline. No one here ever asked me to clean up someone else's mess. I wasn't the safety net anymore. I was just me. Every once in a while, I'd wonder what had become of them. My parents, Madeline, Victor, the baby they named Michelle like a peace offering or a memorial. Ryan still sent the occasional update. One night, he texted, "Victor's being investigated for financial fraud. Something about fake investment portfolios. Wild." Another time, "Your parents' house is up for sale. Foreclosure. They're downsizing. Not sure where everyone's going." The old me would have wept, would have calculated what I could afford to fix, would have scheduled calls, drafted emails, created a plan. But the man I'd become, I read the message, put the phone down, took another sip of wine, and let it go. Grief still arrives sometimes, unexpected, quiet. It crept in on long walks or in the soft shuffle of a baby's cry from a nearby stroller. A part of me had wanted a family like that once, stable, generous, whole. But I learned that family isn't defined by shared blood or holiday traditions. It's defined by who shows up without entitlement, by who loves you without expecting you to bleed for it, by who lets you say no and still stays. Months passed, then a year. I renewed my lease, joined a local photography club, picked up Italian cooking classes. I even met someone, a data analyst named Theo with a crooked smile and the calmest presence I'd ever known. He didn't need saving, he just needed real, and I could be that now. One rainy Saturday, I pulled out the letter from my grandmother again. Her handwriting, shaky but steady, read like closure. "You were always the strong one. The smart one. I'm sorry I let them convince me otherwise. I'd kept it in a drawer, but that day, I framed it, put it by the front door, a reminder that I wasn't crazy, that I hadn't imagined the imbalance, that someone in my family saw me, maybe too late, but still. As the seasons turned and the Thames swelled with the rains, I finally understood something that used to feel like betrayal. Walking away wasn't weakness, it was wisdom. I hadn't abandoned my family. I'd just stopped volunteering to drown with them. I hadn't burned bridges. I'd simply chosen not to rebuild the ones they lit on fire themselves. They expected me to set myself on fire to keep them warm. Instead, I built my own fire, lit it slowly, let it warm only those who sat with respect, not demand. I would never go back to the cold again. Epilogue: on the second anniversary of my move, I took a solo trip to Edinburgh. No reason, just because. I booked a cabin with no Wi-Fi, brought a stack of books, and spent 3 days in stillness. One evening, I sat by the fire and wrote a letter, not to send, just to release. It said everything I never got to say. I forgive you. Not because you apologized, you didn't, but because I need the space that holding on to this pain has taken from me. I wish you peace. I wish you healing. I wish your child a better future than the past you gave me. But I will not return. I will not answer. And I will not rescue. Not anymore. I am done being your lifeline. I am, at last, my own. I tossed the letter into the flames, watched it curl and blacken, listened to the paper crackle like bones shaking off memory. Then I went outside, looked up at the sky, and finally felt free. Story 2. You ever have one of those moments where you realize, yep, this is it. This is where I blow it all up? That was me, at my dad's wedding, in a ballroom so fancy, it looked like Versailles threw up on Michigan Avenue. The venue was the Langston Hotel in downtown Chicago. All white roses, gold-trimmed candle holders, and linen napkins folded into the kind of origami that screamed, "This napkin costs more than your entire week's groceries." Everything was polished, perfect, overly rehearsed, just like the man getting married. I was sitting at the front table, nursing a whiskey, ignoring the plated salmon in front of me. My little sister Jenna was sitting next to me, fingers fussing with the hem of her navy dress. "You okay?" she asked, voice low. I nodded like a liar, peachy. My dad, Gregory Walsh, stood at the edge of the dance floor, hand glued to the waist of his new wife, Naomi. She was polished, blonde, Botoxed, basically everything my late mom wasn't, and she'd been around long before Mom passed away. I knew that. Jenna knew that. Hell, I think Mom knew too, but she was too sick to fight. When the wedding invitation had arrived, I'd thrown it in the trash without blinking. Thick, embossed cardstock, gold script, a blatant screw you to the woman who raised me. I wanted nothing to do with any of it. Then Jenna called. "I can't do this alone, Sam," she'd whispered over the phone, her voice cracking. "I hate him too, but I need someone there who remembers how things really were." So I flew back to Chicago, and now here I was, seated front row to my father's public fairy tale, a happily ever after built on ashes and lies. He'd always been good at playing roles: the grieving husband, the devoted father, the charming attorney with a six-figure smile. But to me, he was the guy who left my mom to die alone while he warmed someone else's bed. "Are you drinking that or just staring at it?" Jenna muttered beside me. I blinked, fingers clenched around the glass. "Both." She gave a tight laugh but didn't relax. None of us could. Then Greg, in true showman fashion, tapped his glass. The band stopped mid-note. The room fell into polite silence. He flashed his courtroom grin. "First of all," he began, "thank you all for coming tonight. Naomi and I are so blessed to be surrounded by such wonderful family and friends as we begin this next chapter." Applause, smiles, bullshit, he continued. "Of course, I want to acknowledge my two amazing children, Jenna and Sam. It hasn't been an easy year. But Jenna, you've been a beautiful light through it all. I'm so proud of you. Jenna smiled like someone being forced to smile at gunpoint. And Sam, one stared straight ahead. I know we've had our differences, but family is family. In the spirit of unity, I'd love for you to say a few words. My brain stalled. I looked at Jenna. Her eyes widened. Then Greg twisted the knife. Don't be a disgrace, son. And that was my trigger. I stood up, lifted my glass, took a breath. Here's to Naomi, I said. The woman who was sleeping with my dad while my mom was dying. The room imploded. A gasp rippled through the crowd. Someone dropped a fork. Greg's best man shattered his champagne flute. Naomi's smile froze mid-face like a wax statue catching fire. You son of a... she began. Greg barked. Sit down, Sam. But I didn't. I took another sip and said, I remember the perfume, the phone calls, the receipts. I remember Mom crying when you said you were working late. You weren't. You were here, with her. Naomi hissed. You're lying. Am I? I asked, cocking an eyebrow. Because mistresses don't usually get custom vows and 10-tier wedding cakes. Greg was livid. You will not ruin this night. You ruined it the moment you walked away from your dying wife, I shot back. And now you expect applause? A toast? Screw that. The priest stood slowly, removed his glasses, and muttered, Nope, I'm out. And just like that, the priest walked out of the wedding. I finished my drink, set the glass on the table, and walked out too. The air outside was cool, sharp. It slapped my face like reality catching up. I stepped onto the terrace, hands trembling. My heart thundered in my chest. I couldn't tell if I was furious or relieved. Probably both. Footsteps behind me. Jenna, you okay? I asked without turning. She let out a half laugh. You nuked Dad's wedding. I looked at her, guilt nibbling at the edge of my confidence. Was I out of line? She shook her head. Maybe, but not wrong. We stood in silence, the city lights flickering below. Finally, she whispered, Mom would have been proud. I swallowed hard. Yeah, I think so too. Then the door opened again, and Greg appeared. Gregory Walsh looked like a man barely keeping it together. His tux jacket hung open, fists clenched tight at his sides. His smile, the one he wore like armor, was gone, replaced by the tight, furious expression I hadn't seen since the day I told him I wasn't going into law. Jenna, he said, voice low but sharp. Go inside. She didn't move. I said, I heard you. She cut in, her voice suddenly steel. But I'm staying right here. He turned to me next, locking eyes. I stepped forward without thinking, just enough to stand between him and her. She stays. Greg's nostrils flared. He exhaled hard through his nose, trying to reel it in. Always about appearances, even now. I don't want to do this here, he said, eyes flicking toward the ballroom behind him. Not in public. I let out a cold laugh. Pretty sure that ship sailed the second you called me a disgrace, in front of 200 people. You humiliated me, he hissed. I tilted my head. No, Dad, you did that all on your own. You could have just sat quietly. Could have, I said. But then I would have had to swallow the same lie you've been peddling for a year. The grieving widower, the loving father, the man who found love again after tragedy. Meanwhile, Mom was dying while you played house with Naomi in a hotel room across town. His face paled. You don't know the full story. Then tell it, I snapped. Go ahead. I'd love to hear how you justified cheating on your wife while she was too weak to lift her head off a pillow. He started to speak, then stopped, looked away. Silence fell like a weight between us. When he spoke again, his voice was quieter. You don't understand what our marriage had become. We were broken, long before Naomi. My stomach turned. You don't get to rewrite the past just to make yourself feel better, I said. She loved you. She fought for this family. And you threw her away like she was just inconvenient. Greg's jaw clenched. I was unhappy, he muttered. That one stung more than anything else. Unhappy? I took a step forward. She was dying. You think she wasn't unhappy? You think it was easy watching her body break down while the man she loved started vanishing into thin air? She still showed up. Every day, she still believed in you. You think it was easy for me? He snapped suddenly, watching her waste away, feeling like I couldn't save her? Oh, so you coped by starting a new life while she was still breathing? I said, my voice rising. That's what you want to be remembered for? The guy who bailed when things got hard? Greg turned away, running a hand through his thinning hair. He looked older than he had even 10 minutes ago, like something in him cracked. I didn't want it to end like this, he said quietly. Neither did I replied. He turned back to face me, something colder in his eyes now. If you walk away now, Sam, that's it. Don't come back later and expect anything. I stared at him. And this was the moment, right? The line in the sand. The ultimatum. But I'd already lost one parent. Losing another, this one I could live with. I'm not coming back, I said, clear and steady. He didn't reply. Just stood there, staring like he didn't recognize me anymore. Then I turned my back on him. Jenna followed without hesitation. We slipped through the side entrance of the hotel, where a couple of kitchen staff stood taking a smoke break, looking entirely unbothered by the chaos unraveling inside. One of them gave us a small nod. We kept walking. Outside, the city was alive in that way only Chicago can be loud, bright, a little drunk. Cars rolled past, horns blaring, laughter echoing from nearby patios. We walked without speaking for a while, our heels clicking against the pavement. Jenna finally broke the silence. You okay? I rubbed the back of my neck. Honestly, I don't even know, she laughed. You look like you knew in there. I shrugged. I was running on fumes and spite. Well, she said, bumping her shoulder into mine. Your spite got us out of there, so thanks. We stopped at the crosswalk. I looked over at her. You regret it? I asked. Nope, she said, a bit too fast, then smirked. Might have delivered this speech differently, but no regrets. The light turned green, and we kept moving. I don't even know what we're supposed to do now, I said. Go home? Pretend we didn't just blow up Dad's fairy tale wedding? Jenna snorted. Hell no. We're already dressed. Let's go get a drink. I raised an eyebrow. You serious? You said it yourself. We flew here to witness a train wreck. We might as well toast to the wreckage. And so we did. We ended up in some upscale bar in River North. One of those swanky cocktail lounges with overpriced drinks and walls lined with leather-bound books no one's actually read. We were out of place, for sure, but we didn't care. We ordered cocktails that took 10 minutes to make and cost more than lunch, sat in a booth near the back and let the night just wash over us. Think he's going to call? Jenna asked, swirling the last of her drink. Probably, I said. I won't answer, she smiled. Damn right. Then her phone buzzed. She glanced at the screen. Her eyes widened. Sam, look at this. She slid it across the table. A video of me toasting to Naomi. Oh no. Someone had recorded the whole damn thing. Who posted it? I asked. Doesn't say. But it's got over 200,000 views already. Are you kidding me? She shook her head. It's on Twitter, Reddit, TikTok, Instagram. It's everywhere. I stared at the video in disbelief. The caption read, Groom's son drops truth bomb at wedding and the priest walks out. I didn't know whether to laugh or crawl into a hole. Jenna was already scrolling through the comments. Justice for the mom, she read aloud. That priest deserves a raise. The only acceptable wedding toast in 2025. God, I muttered. We've gone viral. And then my phone rang. Caller ID, Gregory Walsh. One hit decline. You gonna answer it? Nope. She raised her glass. To going viral for the right reasons. I clinked mine against hers. To Mom. By the time we woke up the next morning, the internet had done what it does best. Blew everything up. Jenna and I were sitting in a quiet cafe near Wicker Park, sipping black coffee, like we hadn't just lit our father's life on fire the night before. Phones buzzing nonstop. Texts from cousins we hadn't spoken to in years. Messages from people who had been at the wedding. Strangers tagging us in viral clips with captions like, "Ultimate wedding mic drop," or, "This is why you invite the honest sibling." I took another sip of coffee and scrolled through the chaos. One video had over 1 million views. In it, you could see my face, clear as day, raising the glass and delivering that line like I was reading scripture. "Here's to the woman who was sleeping with my dad while my mom was dying." And then the collective gasp, the shattered glass, Naomi's face twisting, Greg's jaw locking, the priest walking out. Honestly, kind of cinematic. Jenna choked on her croissant. "Look at this comment. The priest leaving is the most savage exit since Thanos." I couldn't help but laugh. That man saw the mess and noped out like a professional. She leaned over and whispered, half joking, "We really did it, huh?" "Yep," I nodded. "And we did it loud." We sat in silence for a moment, both staring at our phones. Then Jenna spoke, voice quieter now. "You think it was too much?" I set my phone down and looked at her. "No, not when the truth's been buried this long." She nodded slowly, pressing her lips together. Just then, a new text popped up on my screen. It was from Peter, my dad's best man. "That took guts, Sam. I always suspected. Sorry I didn't say anything sooner." I showed it to Jenna. She gave a small, bitter smile. "Of course he knew. Coward," I muttered. Another message, this time from one of Greg's old clients. "You're a better man than your father. Just wanted to say that." And then the kicker, a Google alert linked to an article titled, "High-Profile Attorney's Wedding Implodes as Sunouts Affair During Toast." "Oh my God," Jenna said, reading over my shoulder. "He's toast." No pun intended. We laughed, but it was nervous, tired. We hadn't really slept. Our minds were still spinning. "Think he'll sue someone for posting the video?" she asked. I shook my head. "Doesn't matter. The damage is already done." And it wasn't just social damage. By that afternoon, the fallout had started to hit. Greg's firm, one of those old money, squeaky clean law offices in the Loop, released a bland public statement. Something about conduct unbecoming of a partner and an internal review. Translation: they were scrambling to get ahead of the PR disaster. Clients started backing out, distancing themselves. Rumors swirled about other affairs. One of Naomi's friends from the wedding commented on a Facebook post that she had known for years, but stayed silent out of respect. Respect, huh? That word had lost all meaning to me. Within a week, Greg stepped down from the firm. 2 days after that, Naomi deleted every one of her social media accounts. She didn't last much longer. Jenna called me late one night, laughing breathlessly. She left him. Naomi packed her bags and bounced. Apparently, the online harassment was too much. Someone even made a parody Instagram called at Mistress in White. I almost felt bad. Almost. But then I remembered my mother's face, pale and tired, lying in that hospital bed alone while Greg played the grieving husband in public, and something in me hardened again. He deserved this. A few days later, Jenna and I visited Mom's grave. It was cold, that kind of early spring cold where the air feels like glass. The sky was overcast, and the cemetery was still, peaceful. We brought lilies. Mom loved lilies. Jenna knelt and cleared some leaves away. I stood beside her, hands in my pockets, breath curling in the air. "Hey, Mom," I said quietly. "You won't believe what we did." Jenna gave a soft laugh, eyes glassy. "You would have loved it." We stood there for a long time. There wasn't much to say, but somehow, it felt like she already knew. Eventually, I pulled a folded piece of paper from my jacket. It was a copy of the wedding toast, word for word. I placed it under a rock beside her headstone. "Truth always finds its way out," I whispered, and for the first time in a long time, I felt something close to peace. Greg left me a voicemail a week after that. "Sam, I know things got out of hand, but you're still my son. We should talk. I didn't listen to the rest, just deleted it. He didn't want a conversation. He wanted control again. But I was done letting him rewrite the narrative. So I said nothing. Jenna and I moved on, not in some dramatic Hollywood sense, just gradually. We went back to our lives, but something had shifted, like a weight had been lifted. Greg's reputation? In ruins. His career? Circling the drain. Naomi? Gone. The Fairmont Hotel? Probably still scrubbing the ghost of that wedding off its marble floors. The internet never forgot, though. Every few weeks, a clip from the toast would resurface. New memes, new comments. My favorite one? This is why you don't mess with someone who has nothing left to lose. Felt pretty accurate. A month passed. Then two. The buzz died down like all storms do. The internet moved on to its next big thing, some influencer breakup or celebrity scandal. But in our corner of the world, the dust was still settling. Funny thing about public messes, people remember, but they stop talking. The looks linger a little longer. The whispers fade into silence. But the energy, that always sticks. Greg didn't reach out again. Not directly, anyway. A couple mutuals said he was laying low in a downtown condo, drinking more than usual, trying to clean up what was left of his professional life. But the damage was too deep, too public. Clients didn't want to be associated with the cheating lawyer from the viral wedding. Judges started looking at him sideways. His firm didn't take him back. And Naomi? She was gone, packed her bags and ghosted after the backlash hit. Turns out, being the other woman is a lot less glamorous when the spotlight burns. She had signed up for prestige and praise, not becoming a meme. Jenna and I didn't celebrate it. We didn't throw a party or gloat or repost the video with dramatic soundtracks. We just moved on, quietly. There's this thing that happens after a long fight, after the yelling, the storm, the fallout. A kind of stillness. Not peace exactly, but space, breathing room. You realize how loud everything had been for so long, how much weight you'd been carrying. That's where we landed. In that silence, we weren't healed, but we weren't bleeding anymore either. One warm Saturday, Jenna and I drove up to the lake. No reason, just needed air, I think. She was in the passenger seat with her feet on the dash, sunglasses on, a playlist humming through the speakers. Nothing heavy, nothing dramatic. Somewhere along the shoreline, we pulled over, climbed down to a flat rock, and just sat. Waves lapped against the stones. The breeze was soft, warm, and for once, nothing needed to be said. You know, Jenna finally said, stretching out her legs, I thought I'd feel guilty. About the wedding? She nodded. Or maybe about Dad. About blowing everything up. I waited. But I don't, she said. Not even a little. I smiled. Good. Neither do I. She leaned her head on my shoulder. We stayed like that for a while. Just breathing. Just being. Later that week, I got a letter in the mail. Handwritten. No return address, but I recognized the handwriting instantly. Greg's. It was short. No apologies. Just words. I did what I thought I had to. I don't expect forgiveness, but I needed you to know. I never stopped being your father. Even when I failed at it, I didn't reply. Not because I didn't care, but because I did. Too much. And that was the problem. People always talk about forgiveness like it's some kind of finish line. Like once you get there, you're free. But the truth is, forgiveness isn't the end. It's just another mile in the journey. And sometimes, you're not ready to take that next step. And that's okay. A few months later, Jenna and I took one last trip together before she moved out west for grad school. She got accepted into a clinical psychology program she thought was a long shot. I wasn't surprised. She's always been smarter than she gives herself credit for. Before she left, we made one more visit to Mom's grave. No flowers this time, just us. Hey, Mom, Jenna said, kneeling again. We're okay. Just thought you should know. I nodded beside her. We're getting there. We stood for a while in silence, like we always did. Let the wind pass through. Let the past breathe. Then I reached into my jacket and pulled out a small folded piece of paper, another copy of the toast. Same as before, but this time I'd written something new on the back. Justice isn't always loud. Sometimes it's just finally being able to sleep at night. I set it down gently at the base of her stone. Jenna didn't ask what it said. She just slipped her hand into mine. I'd be lying if I said everything got better overnight. Grief doesn't work like that. Neither does betrayal. But here's what I learned. Sometimes healing doesn't look like fixing what was broken. Sometimes it looks like walking away from the wreckage and building something new somewhere else. With new hands, new heart. We didn't just burn our father's wedding down. We buried the lies. We honored the truth. And in doing so, we gave our mother the voice she never got to use. We gave ourselves a chance to breathe again, to live without the weight of pretending. So no, I don't regret a single word I said that night. I would say it all again. Every damn word. The last thing I'll say is this. If you're carrying something heavy, some old truth buried deep, some injustice, everyone's too polite to mention, know this. You are not crazy. You are not wrong. And when you finally speak, when you finally stand, you'll find the people who see you, who stand beside you, who don't flinch when the silence breaks. I did, and it saved me. That night at the wedding didn't destroy our family. It revealed what was already broken. And once we saw it clearly, really saw it, we could finally let it go. So we did. And we're still letting go. But this time, we're doing it together. Free. Story 3. They say you don't notice the moment everything changes, it just slowly unravels until suddenly, nothing's the same. That's what happened with me and Aaron. I'm Jake, 45 now. Aaron's 43. We were married for 10 years, together for 12. We have twin daughters, Ava and Zoe, 8 years old, and somehow wiser than they should be. For the longest time, I thought we were solid. Sure, life threw us the usual punches: bills, stress, long work weeks, but I never doubted our foundation. At least, not until about a year ago. That was when my dad, Mark, got diagnosed with stage 3 leukemia. It hit like a freight train. One day he was tossing a football with the girls in the yard, and the next he was in a hospital bed, pale and hooked up to beeping machines. I won't lie, watching the strongest man I knew suddenly rely on others to move, eat, survive it cracked something in me. Naturally, I wanted to be there for him. For my mom too, she was overwhelmed, drowning in doctor visits, insurance paperwork, and keeping the house going. So I told Aaron, whatever plans we had about moving to a bigger city, they were on pause. She seemed to understand. She hugged me after those hard nights, watched the kids when I drove my parents to appointments, even made dinner more often. I thought we were on the same page, but that understanding had a shelf life. At first, it was little comments. I saw this job posting in Denver. You'd love the food scene there. Or, it'd be so great for the girls to grow up somewhere with more culture. I didn't think much of it. But those comments turned into conversations, and then arguments. Aaron worked in digital marketing. Talented, smart, capable, and deeply frustrated with the limited opportunities in our mid-sized town. She started sending me job listings, networking online, even planning mock interviews. I kept reminding her my dad was sick, very sick. He couldn't just visit us in another state while undergoing chemo. Eventually, it wasn't about logic anymore. She stopped listening and started pushing. Then one day, I got home after a long afternoon at the hospital, exhausted, emotionally fried, and Erin was practically bouncing in the kitchen like she'd won the lottery. I got it, she said. Got what? The job. Director of Brand Strategy. Out in Portland. Double the salary. I blinked. My brain was still catching up. Wait, when did you even apply? She hesitated. That silence told me everything. Apparently, she'd applied 2 months ago, interviewed on Zoom during lunch breaks, and accepted the offer last week. Without saying a word to me, I felt sucker punched and betrayed. We fought. God, did we fight. She said she was tired of putting her career on hold. Said I was making my dad's illness the center of everything. That I was too sensitive. I accused her of being selfish, cold. I asked her what kind of partner makes a decision like that without even discussing it. That night, she packed a suitcase and left to stay with her parents. 3 days passed. I barely slept. The girls asked where their mom was, and I had no good answer. Then she came back. We sat at the kitchen table after the twins went to bed and had the most clinical conversation I'd ever had with someone I used to share dreams with. No tears, no apologies, just logistics. We agreed she would move. She'd start her new job. I'd stay here with the kids and care for my parents. Aaron would fly back every other weekend to spend time with Ava and Zoe, and that's how our long-distance marriage began. At first, it worked barely. She'd fly in Friday nights, leave Sundays. The twins were confused but adaptable, as kids are. I ran on caffeine and guilt, juggling full-time work, parenting, and elder care like a tightrope walker with no safety net. But by the second month, cracks started forming. Her visits became shorter. Her calls became fewer. Conversations were rushed or snippy. She started nitpicking what I fed the kids, how I dressed them, how their hair looked. Then came Amanda. Aaron had known Amanda since college. I'd always found her unsettling. She had that smug, performative independence that somehow always ended with another rich ex-husband and a bigger child support check. Amanda had reappeared like a bad penny, living in Portland, and quickly became Aaron's lifeline in her new city. I didn't like it, but voicing that concern, it just caused more fights. Aaron said I didn't understand these women single moms, strong and self-reliant, but the way she talked about them, they sounded less like independent women and more like strategic manipulators. One night during a phone call, Aaron was raving about Amanda's resilience and how freeing it was to be around women who knew their worth. I made the mistake of scoffing. That set off the final explosion. She accused me of being jealous, of stifling her growth, of needing constant validation for being the good guy. I told her she'd abandoned her family, that she let herself get brainwashed by a group of gold-digging divorces, that she sounded nothing like the woman I married. We ended that call with a mutual, seething silence. 6 days later, she told me she was flying in that weekend with divorce papers. I wasn't surprised, but damn, it still hurt. When she showed up, I looked at her, really looked, and she felt like a stranger, someone I used to know. We signed the paperwork within a week. It was shockingly smooth. I kept the house. We agreed on shared custody, though the girls would live primarily with me. She'd still visit every other weekend. The night I told Ava and Zoe their mom wouldn't be coming home anymore, they cried. So did I, quietly, after they fell asleep. From the outside, our lives didn't change that much. Aaron still flew in twice a month. The twins still went to their grandparents' house during her weekends. I kept grinding work, hospital runs, homework help, bedtime stories. But something in me had gone cold. I was no longer fighting to fix anything. I was surviving. And each night I'd sit in the living room, stare at old photos, and wonder if the love we had ever really existed, or if I'd just been too blind to see it unraveling all along. About a month after the divorce was finalized, the dust had mostly settled. I was still in survival mode, running on autopilot. Wake up, get the kids dressed, pack lunches, work, check on dad, help mom with bills, homework, dinner, baths, bedtime, then silence. That silence used to feel peaceful. Now it was just empty. One night, I was sitting in the dark, scrolling mindlessly through my phone, when it rang. Aaron. My first thought was something happened to the girls, but they were upstairs, snoring like little freight trains. I answered. All I heard was sobbing, ugly, raw sobbing, the kind where you can't even breathe right. I didn't know what to say. I just sat there, holding the phone to my ear until she finally started talking. And what she said, it hit different. she said. I messed up. Over and over. Said the job wasn't what she thought it'd be. The firm had made a lot of promises during the hiring process, big budgets, a team of creatives, flexibility, but the reality was long hours, layoffs, and surprise salary cuts. She was barely making more than she had in our old city, but everything in Portland was twice as expensive. Then came the real kicker. She admitted she'd started dating again. Said Amanda and her crew encouraged her to put herself out there. Set her up with finance bros and single dads. Even helped her make dating profiles. But none of it felt right. According to her, every date felt hollow. The guys were shallow, or emotionally unavailable, or only looking for hookups. She said, none of them made me feel anything. Not like you did. Not even when we were fighting. It was a strange thing to hear flattering, I guess, but all I could think about was how much time had passed. How many nights I'd held the twins while they asked why Mommy didn't call. Erin told me she missed us, me, the girls, our home, even my parents. She said she thought leaving would give her freedom, but it just gave her space to realize what she'd lost. I let her talk. I listened, but I didn't say much. When she finally asked, quietly, if there was any chance of trying again, I couldn't lie. I told her no. I reminded her she'd made her choice. Not once, but over and over. She didn't just leave, she planned it in secret. Took a job behind my back, and then served me papers without warning. I told her the way she laughed off my father's illness, the way she belittled my family's pain, it had changed how I saw her. Then I said something I regret. I told her maybe I should file for full custody. She went quiet. And then, through choked breath, she whispered, please don't. But I was too angry to care in that moment. I ended the call, blocked her number. I sat in the dark afterward, hands shaking, wondering if I'd gone too far. Part of me felt vindicated. Another part? Sick. The next day, her dad called me. He's a good man. Always treated me with respect. Even through the divorce. He wasn't angry, just disappointed. Said Erin was in a bad way, that she was thinking about quitting her job and moving back, not to get back together, necessarily, but to be closer to the kids. Said my words felt like punishment more than a boundary. I didn't respond much, just listened. And then came the weekend. Erin was scheduled to visit. I hadn't unblocked her number, so I didn't know if she'd actually show. But Saturday morning, there she was standing on the porch with a bag of gifts and those eyes that looked like they hadn't seen sleep in a week. The girls ran to her, wrapped their arms around her like it was Christmas morning, and for a moment, I didn't see the woman who'd left, I just saw their mom. After the initial chaos, I expected her to take them to her parents like usual, but instead, she asked if we could talk after they went to bed. I agreed. The day crawled by. We played house for a few hours, took the girls to the park. Erin cooked dinner, something she hadn't done in months. The girls were over the moon. After bedtime, we sat at the kitchen table, coffee mugs in hand, not touching them. She started off with, I just want to talk. I'm not expecting anything. And then she laid it all out. No sugarcoating, no justifications. She admitted she'd been selfish, that she let her ambition and her envy cloud her judgment. She said she resented feeling stuck in a small town while watching friends build flashy careers and glamorous lives. But once she had what they had, it felt empty, shallow, and honestly, pretty damn lonely. She talked about Amanda and her independent mom friends, how they joked about manipulating exes, boasted about squeezing alimony checks, and treated dating like business deals. At first, Erin found it empowering. Then she realized they were just bitter, not strong bitter, still clinging to old grudges, pretending their chaos was freedom. Erin told me she was done with all that. She said she'd already given notice at work, was moving back, had found a small apartment 15 minutes from our house and lined up some interviews nearby. She wasn't asking to come back to me, just wanted to be closer to Ava and Zoe, to show up, be there, not just every other weekend. She even brought up the custody thing, said she'd respect whatever I decided, but asked, begged really, that I not try to push her out of their lives. I told her I'd said that out of anger, that I had no intention of keeping the girls from her unless she gave me a reason. She nodded, teary-eyed, but calm. Then she said something that stuck with me. "You're a good man, Jake." I forgot that for a while. I won't forget again. She left that night with the twins to stay at her parents', and I stood in the doorway, watching the car drive away, feeling something I hadn't felt in months. Relief. Not because we'd made up, but because, finally, the truth was out. No more pretending. No more guessing. Just honesty. The next day, when she dropped the kids off, things felt different. Not warm exactly, but human, civil. We talked logistics, her new place, the new job schedule, how we'd transition the kids. For the first time, we weren't talking through bitterness. We were co-parenting. Before she left, she mentioned she'd cut ties with Amanda and the others. Not because they were bad people, but because she didn't like who she became around them. She owned her mistakes, didn't blame anyone else. And that counted for something. 4 months have passed since that conversation across the kitchen table. It's strange how much can shift when no one's shouting, when no one's walking away. Erin kept her word. She moved back, found a small apartment a few neighborhoods over, took a job at a local firm, not flashy, not six-figure, but steady, close to home, close to the girls. We changed the custody setup. The twins spend 1 week with me, 1 with her. We trade off Fridays, help each other when things get messy with school schedules, doctor visits, or work meetings. No drama, no keeping score, just life. The transition was smoother than I expected. The girls adjusted faster than I did, honestly. They turned it into a game: 2 bedrooms, 2 sets of clothes, 2 fridges with different snacks. They'd come back from Erin's place talking about her cozy couch and the pancake Saturdays she started doing. And I'd listen, nod, and feel a strange blend of pride and grief. The house felt different when it was just me. Not lonely, really, just still. I used to hate that silence. Now, I'm learning to live with it. I rearranged the furniture, painted the living room, cleaned out the garage finally. Made the space mine, not ours, not hers, just mine. When the girls are here, it's loud and chaotic and full of dance parties and glitter glue. When they're gone, it's quiet but not hollow. Erin and I were not friends. Not really, but we're not enemies either. We talk about the girls, school events, soccer practice, dentist appointments. Sometimes she sends photos from her week, Ava holding a worm in the backyard, Zoe covered in flour from baking cookies. I do the same. Little updates, just enough to stay connected, not enough to drift into the past. There's no flirting, no lingering glances, just respect, mutual, cautious respect. Her parents apologized a while back for pushing so hard after that phone call, for assuming I was being cold when really, I was just exhausted. They've been great, honestly. Help with pickups when needed. Show up at recitals. Still treat me like family. And that's been a comfort I didn't expect. My dad? He's doing better. The chemo's working. He's in remission, technically. The doctors won't use the word cured, but his energy's back. He plays checkers with the girls again, makes inappropriate jokes at dinner, and insists on mowing the lawn even when I tell him to sit down. Seeing him bounce back, it reminded me that nothing stays broken forever. I've started doing more for myself too. During the weeks when the girls are with Erin, I joined a community group that does volunteer work. Simple stuff, food drives, helping neighbors with repairs, reading at the library. But it gets me out of the house, out of my own head. I've made some new friends. Not many, just enough. No, I'm not dating. I'm not even thinking about dating. That part of me isn't ready yet, and maybe it won't be for a while. But I'm okay with that. Some things take time. Some things deserve time. The hardest part now? Saying goodbye every other Friday. Watching the girls walk to Erin's car, backpacks bouncing, little hands waving. Every time, it stings. Not because I don't trust her, not because I think she'll fail again, but because that part of me, the one that wanted one home, one life, one story, it still grieves what could have been. And then there are the holidays, splitting time, trying to make memories in half the hours, watching the girls adjust, trying to act like it's all normal. Sometimes they ask, "Why don't you and Mom live together anymore?" I always answer gently, "We both love you so much." But sometimes people can't live together and still be happy. They accept it. Kids are better at adapting than adults. But I know the questions will get harder as they get older. I'm already preparing for that. And Erin? She's changed. Or maybe just grown. She doesn't talk about Amanda or her old life in Portland anymore. She doesn't pretend things are perfect. Sometimes I catch a flicker of regret in her face when she's watching the girls laugh, or when we're standing next to each other at school events and not saying much. But she never asks to come back. And I never offer. We both know too much damage was done. That door didn't just close, it collapsed. And neither of us has the strength or maybe the desire to rebuild it. But here's what I do know. We're both trying to be good parents, trying to make peace with who we were and who we are now, trying to show two little girls that even when things fall apart, you can still build something solid from the pieces. It won't look like the picture you had in your head, but it can still be home. These days, I don't look at our old wedding photos with anger. I look at them and think, we tried. And sometimes that's all you can do. Try, learn, let go, grow. And when the past knocks on your door, you don't answer with bitterness. You nod. You thank it for the lesson. Then you turn back toward the light. One step at a time.